welcome. Welcome, coaches, to this presentation. Today, as I announced before, we have two coaches, Vincent and Francesca, who are presenting the work that they have created around the book that you have read. So, Vincent, you are the first, and you are sharing about Coaching for Performance, a book by John Whitmore. So the space is all yours. We are very interested in listening to what you're going to share and then discuss it together later on.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Christina. Also a warm hello and welcome to everyone on my part. I'm happy to be allowed to share some of my learnings with you today. As Christina just announced, I was happy enough to read the book Coaching for Performance by John Whitmore. And for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to be talking about my personal journey, reading this book, some of the things that it has taught me on my journey as a coach. And I will mostly focus on the things that were most insightful to me. However, you can all imagine the book is pretty long, so there would be a lot more to say, but this is sort of the things that stood out to me the most, and I was able to gain as a learning from this experience. Maybe really quickly about the author and the book. John Whitmore is viewed by many as one of the fathers of coaching, being a very influential person on the field. He was never part of ICF, but still a lot of his ideas and perspectives reverberate. And I think it is fair to say that we can maybe see some of his perspectives through the lens of ICF today as well. The book is in its 5th edition, which probably speaks to its popularity. Among its most famous ideas, probably the GROW model, which I will not be talking about today. But it was probably one of the first books on coaching, certainly in the professional space. And I think what's quite fascinating about the book more generally is that it's catered to two kind of audiences. So on the one hand, it tries to enrich the perspective of professional coaches and people in our sphere, but it is also intended to be a book for leaders and managers, which also probably shows you is shown in the name. So it's a lot about coaching as a way of leading, and as the title might suggest, a way of bringing out the best performances in people, which might be maybe a little bit of a older perspective on coaching. So today I'll be focusing on two particular learnings that I had from this book. So on the one hand, I'll be talking a bit about how it has helped me gain more clarity about my own definitions of coaching and my understanding and clarity of what coaching is. And the second learning is sort of centered around how I've gained awareness about how awareness and responsibility are very central to coaching. And those were ideas that I found to be quite profound in my experience of reading this book, and then also trying to connect it to some of the ICF competencies. But yeah, so as I just mentioned, it has enhanced my understanding and clarity about what coaching is. I think we all, at least the ones that start out here, have made the experience of working on our coaching definitions. And I think one of the first learnings I had here at Sunlight Academy was the importance of being able to define coaching and to keep evolving your understanding of what it means to be a coach. And to be very honest, at first I found it a bit surprising that we had to define coaching. But while working on the definitions and also then starting to read the book, a lot of it really started clicking for me because, well, yeah, it brings into, like, understanding what it is really brings into perspective the arguments that were laying out in the book. And maybe on a more personal level, it really then allowed me to understand my role as a coach better. It gave me some guidelines to know which skills I really actually need to improve, or what is it that I'm trying to learn here. And I think what is also very important there was to get a better understanding of what the benefits of coaching are, as well as its boundaries. Another thing that I found very insightful there was also that it just lets me communicate about our profession better, which is obviously very important when we start partnering with clients. And to be honest, it was also very important to me because when I just started to explain to friends or people or family members what it is that I'm actually learning, at the beginning it was actually pretty hard to be properly able to give a good explanation of what coaching is, and working on the definition there, and also getting another perspective through this book was very important for me there. And there, obviously gaining my own awareness of the ICF standards and my role as a coach, differentiating ourselves and our profession from other professions was a big step there for me. Yeah, and I think the book there was also very important because it helped me to put the initial learnings that I had here at Sunlight into a bit more context. And yeah, and it was very interesting to see how through reading the book and working on them, this has also evolved for me over time. Yeah, I think also maybe as a gentle reminder, I mean, I think we all have read this definition more than once, but ICF defines coaching as partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. And this sort of in amalgam with what the book had to offer for me was quite insightful. Of course, beyond just defining what coaching is, the ICF also aids us with the code of ethics. And of course, this is important for us as coaches in the practice of knowing how to act ethically. But I think it's also a big step because, again, like the things that I previously mentioned about the role of us as coaches, but also the role of the client, as well as knowing very important terms like confidentiality, equality, and the coaching relationship really adds to the understanding of what it is that coaching is for and how we want to show up there. So yeah, Whitmore there writes that coaching is all about the journey. It is about the way things are done. And coaching delivers the results because of the powerful working relationship we create. And for me, this really highlighted that coaching is about partnering. And that this partnering process, in other words, the way that it is done is the crucial bit. It's not about specific knowledge or about the situation or fully understanding the client, but way more about partnering in this right way. And this really highlighted for me my responsibility as a coach, making sure that the process, or in other words, as maybe Whitmore would say it, the shared journey is done in a way that allows for the greatness of the client to unfold, and such that we can actually witness that as coaches. Yeah, and I think it's needless to say that this is also very much connected to a lot of the competencies that we work on and are in daily contact as professional coaches. On the one hand, it's obviously about cultivating trust and safety. So competency number 4, you know, they're demonstrating respect for the client's identity, perception, styles, and so on, demonstrating openness and transparency, but also really showing support and empathy. And I think it is also, to me, it is also a lot about establishing and maintaining agreements, because when we're trying to have this working relationship, it is a lot about obviously partnering with the client there and maybe also the stakeholders that are involved. And yeah, they're really trying to have a client centered approach. I think what it also might encompass to some extent is maintaining presence and listening actively, because those are what really underline how we partner as coaches with the clients. And I think also maybe going back to the definition we talked earlier about, that this thought-provoking bit to me is really a really essential one, because this to me means that having a relationship that is sort of based on open-mindedness and curiosity and yeah, thought-provoking there obviously is also about making space for the thoughts and feelings through either like open observations, reflections, or open-ended questions. Yeah. Whitmore also, I think, had some parts of the book that are very closely aligned, in my opinion, to how maybe we would see a lot of the potentiality in our clients. So he writes, coaching is partnering with clients such they can let their potential unfold. It is becoming thought partners so we can witness learning, and this is happening through experience. After all, how did you learn to walk? And we all have a built-in natural learning capability. And I think what I really appreciate about this perspective, and maybe more broadly, learning for that matter, is that also from my personal experience, most of the most important things that I've been able to pick up in life have been done through self-learning and not through instruction. And if I think back to the best teachers, mentors, or guides that I had in my life, they would aid the process by letting me have the responsibility, learning from my own experience and my own drive. And of course, as coaches, we're not neither of these things, but I think that doesn't change the fact that this is how we as humans are probably best equipped to learn. And I think it is also a beautiful perspective because it really illuminates one of the most powerful dimensions of coaching, which is which differentiates us from other professions, which is this trust in maybe the natural learning capabilities, which to me is another way of saying there is an unlimited potential in people, and this cannot be tapped into through instruction, but it needs to be self-initiated and by taking own responsibility. And I would say that this is very much closely aligned to, on the one hand, embodying the coaching mindset, really at acknowledging that the clients are responsible for their own choices. And it is a lot, obviously, for me also about, again, cultivating trust and safety. And at the same time, I think this is would maybe be a nice place to also ask the community a little bit about their ideas here, because I would like, before maybe I say what natural learning means to you, I'd love to ask some of you what it might be for you to think about natural learning and having a built-in natural ability in this case.
So what is exactly the question, Vincent, again, so that our colleagues have more...
Maybe the most simplified version is, what does natural learning mean to you?
Say something, Vincent. For me, it's all about that thought-provoking process that you were mentioning earlier. I think that is what drives natural learning capability, really. So the idea of having a continuous thought-provoking process in my mind that actually stimulates and builds learning for me. I think curiosity, being open-minded, being really receptive around or from everything around me, that is what for me drives natural learning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you so much, Barbara, also for being here and sharing your thoughts on this. Does anyone else maybe want to share a perspective? Otherwise, I can obviously also.
Yeah, I can say something. Actually, I think we have embedded somehow the learning ability in us, as it is survival mechanism. If we don't learn to walk and work with some tools and speak and observe and learn from observation and trying and failing, we don't survive. So it's very, very natural ability which is in us.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's a very interesting idea.
So from what Beat says, there is something about observation, self-observation. And Francesca, you were about to talk.
Yeah, sorry. If I may, also what comes to my mind, it's also that it can be a sort of learning that we're not even aware that we're learning. Like it can be like a day-to-day process, and we're not even aware that we're actually learning so much about that specific thing. But it's actually like our mind, our subconscious, and like our body that is actually learning, and that specific new thing. And then at some point we just realize, oh, okay, I'm able to do this. Yeah,
very fascinating. Well, thanks everyone, and thanks Francesca so much for bringing in these wonderful ideas. Maybe also to give some of my spin to it, especially in connection to our profession here. I think to me it's also really linked to this belief in the unlimited potential of our clients, because if it means that we all possess and have these capabilities that allow us to learn, to some extent, this also means that it's an unlimited resource, because if we believe that the client will know what's best for them and they can choose what to do with it and how to do it, this obviously is a very empowering thought. And I think to me, it's also another way of saying that all of us have the capability of evolving, and this natural learning ability is what allows us to expand there, because learning happens through experience, and we already have those resources to learn through experience, and those are planted in as Vit maybe would have said earlier, in all of us, because it's so deeply connected to what it is to be a human, I would say. Okay, I think this is maybe a perspective that Whitmore put in that I would say is very close to how the ICF might view coaching. So there it says coaching stems from the coaching ethos, a belief in the capability, resourcefulness, and potential of others, to focusing on strengths, solutions, and future success, not problems or past performances. Coaching there is based on trust, belief, and non-judgment. And to me, again, this is very much linked to this belief of unlimited potential. And also at the same time, it is about working from where we are right now while aiming at the future. I would also say that this is probably well connected to competency number 4, because as he says there, it is a lot about safety and trust, which I think is very much inside the word non-judgmental. And I think this also illuminates how coaching is different than other professions, because we are focused on the future and we are focused on strengths and resources, and that's what we want to use to be able to move forward. And I think this is also something that me as a coach, I really had to consciously evolve, because yeah, to actively embrace this perspective that I have to have trust that the client knows what's best for them, and that I have to also be humble enough to take a step back from my expertise that I might bring in some fields. So for instance, for me, it was my academic background is in neuroscience and psychology, and to be comfortable with letting the client choose what is best for them is something that I think at the beginning was a big step that I had to consciously choose. Yeah, and I think this is, again, very much closely related to a lot of the competencies. So of course it is a lot about demonstrating an ethical practice, meaning that we have to be sensitive about the identity and the environment that the clients bring, to be able to be non-judgmental and to have trust and belief. It is also about, using appropriate and respectful language, because all of that is very essential if we want to build this trusting relationship. At the same time, I would also say that it's related to embodying a coaching mindset, because again, we want the clients to take responsibility for their own choices. And as previously mentioned there, again, the competency 4 is very important to be able to generate trust and safety. I think a big idea that John Whitmore really wanted to make central to his understanding of coaching there is to say that coaching is emotional intelligence and practice. And I think that this might be another nice opportunity to also ask the community here, what do you guys think about this statement?
Well, I'm not sure if I understand 100%. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Because in emotional intelligence, as we know it from the famous book, is about knowing and being aware about your own emotions and emotions of others, and dealing with your emotions and kind of reflecting and so on with others' emotions. On the other hand, I don't think it's just emotional part. It's just part of the spectrum. That's why I'm kind of hesitating to agree 100%.
It's good to collect ideas and perspectives, and it's good to doubt and disagree, because this is also a place where we can connect with others and see what others sees in what we bring. In a way, I've also shared, probably also with my comments with Vincent, about emotional intelligence, or to expand more, because I agree with what you say, Vid. Coaching is not just about emotions, and we can expand the concept. We can see what's behind. Any other thoughts?
It's between, governing your emotional intelligence and something that happens during the coaching sessions, because in a way we do observe, the change in emotions, changing feelings. So I would say there is a common ground between the two concepts for me. I've never actually thought about these two together, and so it's actually food for thought for me today, Vincent. So thank you for sharing these, because I will definitely explore these in more details in the future. But I do see already some common grounds between the two concepts. Sure.
Well, thank you so much to both of you. It's interesting because in a lot of ways you have actually also answered my follow-up question here, which would have been what might not be so right about the statement, because obviously when working through this, there's also a lot that one might like to add or expand on this concept, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of value in it. So Whitmore, for instance, would write that emotional intelligence can be described as interpersonal intelligence, or even more simply, as personal and social skills. And what I did find fascinating about this statement is that, of course, I think we can all agree that this is not solely what coaching is. But what I did like about it is that it points to the fact that what we tend to agree with, what we tend to associate with what would be useful there, is that it is a type of being that is different from what we would usually tend to associate with intelligence. And so it's more about a way of being, or a way of almost viewing the social world and other humans, that I think is so crucial here. And at the same time, I do think it is connected again to some of the competencies, because at least to me, if I think about emotional intelligence, it is also about showing support, empathy, and concern, which is something that is part and parcel of cultivating trust and safety. I think it is also about understanding the clients in their contexts, including what is their identity, their environment, their experiences, and also just demonstrating openness and transparency to display vulnerability. So I think those are things that I would call emotional intelligence, and that's where I do think there is a nice link. And again, maybe also it is somewhat connected to the ethical practice here, because we want to be sensitive to where our clients are from, and we also want to use language that is appropriate, and we also want to bring personal integrity and honesty in every interaction. And to me, those are things that I personally would call emotionally intelligent, and that's maybe why I do see that there is a nice connection there that is quite expanding about this here. Okay, thanks again for sharing your thoughts on this. It's always nice to hear how a statement like this might reverberate in other people. Okay. So yeah, I think personally, probably my strongest learning from the book, maybe, or at least probably, was this idea that coaching centers on awareness and responsibility. And I think why it was such a powerful learning for me is that it almost seems very simple and straightforward, but a lot of the power in this idea really comes from the fact that if you, at least for me it was, that if I think about how I first need to become aware to then be able to take responsibility and to change things, is something that did resonate with me. And yeah, I would say that even though these are probably concepts that we also hear in a lot of other contexts, I had not really thought about awareness and responsibility in this way. And to sort of have this combination of these two sort of ways at the core, as a necessity for humans to be able to take action and change things, was really cool. Also because I think that when I started being part of this community and I started being a client through peer coaching, but also just through the process of getting one of the other coaches, it was very powerful to me to see that, okay, I might just not have been aware of this, and only through gaining this awareness, now I can actually take this responsibility. I think it is relatively straightforward to see how this is connected to competency number 7, evoking awareness. There, of course, we could say, well, maybe we want to challenge our clients in ways that evoke awareness, or we might want to ask questions that could help, such that they can explore beyond their current way of thinking. And yeah, of course, we also want the client to share more about their experiences in the moments and so on. And if I think about developing these abilities, meaning how can I actually become better at this, or at least evolving as a coach, I think a lot of it is also for me to have trust in the coaching process, and at the same time bringing it back to that idea earlier that it is so important to have trust in the potential of the clients, and to really have trust that they will know what's best for them, and that's why their awareness is what's so essential. We only have tools or a process sort of that may facilitate insights such that awareness may lead to learnings, which then could lead to action. But yeah, I would also say that by the way we establish agreements, so through the whole process, but also in every session, we may be able to give responsibility or sort of to see how that lies with the client. This might be by, either staying silent, by giving observations without judgments, by asking open questions. And so, yeah, to me, it really became apparent how this is such a central piece of coaching. And I did like the idea that Whitmore also made it a central piece of his writing there. Also, a statement there that I was really fascinated by is maybe I talked about it a little bit right now, but I'm only able to control which I'm aware of. That of which I'm unaware of controls me. Awareness empowers me. You can only respond to things you're aware of. So I think I've talked about this now a little bit in the slide before, but what was really fascinating to me there, as someone who I would say is very interested in the mind and the brain and so on, and I've also talked about my background in neuroscience and psychology, is that while the idea of the subconscious has probably found its way, through the likes of Freud and Jung into popular culture and so on, most neuroscientists today would also agree that from the point of the view of the brain, most of what it is doing and computing, we're really unaware of. And so much of what we want and need and the intentions and motivations we have come from somewhere that is almost mysterious to us, at least often it is to me. But yeah, when we're able to become aware of things, then we can actually become responsible and do something about them. And as I was saying earlier, when I was a client, this was definitely something that I really appreciated through my first few sessions there. And Whitmore there also writes that no two human minds or bodies are the same. So how can I tell you how to use yours to its best? Only you can discover how, and this through awareness. And yeah, and I think this again is very much connected to competency number 7, because it is about evoking awareness. And maybe also if we bring it back to the natural learning ability we talked about earlier, Whitmore there explains that humans are natural learning systems. Once we become aware of something, we have the choice to change it. By becoming aware of something, you can change it, and you don't even need to expend effort, as your natural learning system, maybe to some of what Francesca was saying earlier, is there to sort of assist you in ways that are there to adapt to new information, etc. I think another idea that I really liked in this space was how non-judgmental awareness in itself is curative. So why I thought this was so illuminating is because when I also think to my personal experience as someone who has explored meditation and sort of has tried to become friends with their own mind, it is often simply observing without judgment, just having curiosity about what is going on, that has been the most revealing to me. And I think that the same can be true in the coaching process. So on the one hand, this means that we would like to show up as coaches that are non-judgmental and just want to see things evolving in the client. And on the other hand, this is also about having empathy and concern and trying to let the awareness in itself be curative. And I think this is also where there's the chance for clients to decide to learn from what they're becoming aware of, such that they can decide to take action. So here, our ability to partner professionally with them is what's so instrumental, because if we partner with trust and can provide safety and we stay curious and open-minded, and we might maybe offer questions or observations, that's what can evoke awareness. But the awareness then again is in the decision of the client, such that they are allowed to learn, etc. And again, I think this is very tightly connected to some of the competencies we've talked about today. So on the one hand, of course, evoking awareness plays a central role here, as we can also read in the title of the slide here. Because if we challenge the client through ways that evoke awareness, if we ask questions that help explore beyond, those might be in themselves already a lot of what is so curative about the process of partnering together and trying to have trust and safety. Yeah, and then again, to even be able to have trust and safety, empathy and concern for the client is such an essential thing.
And Vincent, I don't want to interrupt the flow, but I want you to be aware of the time, because we also have another presentation. So it's time to wrap up.
Thank you.
To give some
I must admit I hadn't seen the time. So maybe just as a very quick perspective on my last slide, which is actually where I'd like to wrap the presentation up as well, is a lot of the learnings I had about advice, and in this case, how advice is something that is not helpful. Christina was also very friendly there and shared a lot of great resources with me. But maybe also being mindful of the time here, one thing that I really took away from this is that the problem with advice really is in the way that we position ourselves to the other person, and that giving advice to some extent also really implies that we know more, or I know better than you. And of course, this may be unconscious and unintentional, but this really can limit learning. And effective learning, as we've talked about a lot today, comes from within. And every person is different, so only they will know what works best for them. And yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for going through this presentation today with me. And it's been a great learning experience. Also, as I said to Christina, iteratively really trying to combine the learnings with the book is something that was very insightful to me, and I hope some of the ideas were also interesting to the rest of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. It's always my job to also make sure that the timing is okay. I would like to explore with you what was the the learning in going through this work? I mean, what did you receive by going through this work of co-creating and generating this work?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was really to deepen my relationship to the competencies, because every time you sort of try to see it from a different angle, and every time you try to connect it to ways of thinking that others, including maybe John Whitmore, might have on matters, is something that yeah, I think consolidates your understanding of the competencies and therefore brings a lot of power to them. And yeah, I think it was also just a great experience of how a lot of small things, yeah, you have to find a good relationship to these small things if you want to properly master the competencies, because sometimes you might think, well, this is sort of this, or maybe if I explain it in this way, it's sort of what it's meant to be, but only through this iterative process of sort of burning away what's not so good about it and enhancing what is valuable about it, is where a lot of the learning happened for me, at least.
Thank you. Thank you also for your being available to do this work. We actually postponed a bit your presentation, and it was actually very useful. It was showing how partnering and doing the work together with me as your mentor is also fruitful, because as you can see, as you manage to see through your work, you can look at the competencies from different angles and get more perspectives, and also reflect more on what emerged as an initial awareness, and this is allowing you to expand your mastery of the competencies. So thank you very much for your great work, Vincent.